And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we can control the weather.
From the moon. And
Yeah.
then that other stuff happens.
Remember how we said there might be a new intro this week? Well, we were completely wrong. It's next week. And the new theme doesn't come till 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, kind of weird how they did that, but they decided to change the opening title sequence.
Yeah.
But then they don't change the music, the theme to it, until the week after.
Or 2 weeks after or something like that.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of strange.
We'll talk about that when it happens.
Yes. And they don't even change it that much.
Yeah.
It's just one thing that's different. Lazy bastards. No.
Whoa.
No, but this week we watched the Moonbase, which takes place on Mars, because remember, they said they were going to Mars last time.
No. Not even. No. It takes place on the moon.
But we don't know which moon. No, we do.
We do. They show Earth like
maybe
50 times during the serial.
Maybe it's actually Mondas. And this serial takes place in 2070 BC.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because they'd have humans on Mondas.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe they weren't, like, transformed or evolved into Cybermen yet. It makes sense. It's canon. No. They're actually just on the moon, and it's just Earth.
So they arrive, and the doctor's like, see, the moon. We made it. Perfect.
Well, no, they were planning on getting to Mars, right? And then Polly's like, the doctor's like, oh, shoot, I bet I miscalculated. The TARDIS is all messed up now, and I can't control it. And I was like, yeah, no, really, doctor. But then they look on the scanner, and they see, like, a barren landscape. And thanks to the wonders of black and white television, you can't tell what color everything is, so Polly's like, hey, look, doctor, we made it to Mars. And then 5 seconds later, Ben's like, no, it's the moon.
Do you think the scanner's in black and white, too? Just like,
Probably.
They're in the TARDIS, and it's in black and white, and they're just like, doctor, you have a time machine, but you don't have a color video screen? What is this?
It probably is, because Polly, mistook the lunar landscape.
Well, maybe Polly doesn't know what color Mars is.
I guess that's another explanation for it.
So, yeah, they're about to go running out, and the doc's like, wait, there's no atmosphere out there, better put these on, and he gives them all spacesuits, which looks suspiciously like the spacesuits they use on the Moonbase, but anyway.
I thought they looked different enough.
They look the same to me.
I mean, I don't know, I noticed a distinct difference. I mean, they obviously weren't complete polar opposites, because they're spacesuits. I mean, what can you do with a spacesuit? But I noticed differences, and also we didn't mention that this was an animation.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention that because this is the first serial where the first episode has been an animation, so we were introduced to all these characters who are going to show up in a few minutes as in their animated forms.
Yeah.
So that was a little different. And there's something I wanted to say, but oh yeah. This is one of the few times where they actually need protective gear to leave the TARDIS. Like, I mean, are
Basically.
they just lucky every other time where they can just go out without it?
No, they check the oxygen levels on the TARDIS in the TARDIS.
Yeah, I know, but then most of the time they're like, oh, the oxygen levels are good, the atmosphere is fine, we can leave without any protective clothing or spacesuits or whatever. I guess it's just to save on prop budget, but yeah. Anyway, they leave the TARDIS, and then some other stuff happens.
By which you mean Jamie discovers the base and then accidentally gets knocked out and taken inside.
Yeah.
And then Ben and Polly wander over with the doctor, seemingly not caring about the fact Jamie was just kidnapped, and then they also go inside. Yeah, I was surprised at how, like, just completely okay with that they were, because they didn't even mention it. They just walked over and went inside.
Everyone just hates Jamie behind his back. No, but yeah, they go into the Moonbase. And they meet there are a bunch of characters in this serial, and only a few of them are important.
Well, there's Benoit, the French guy.
And there's so Hobbs is like in charge of the Moonbase, and they're using this machine called a gravitron to control the weather on Earth. Mm-hmm. And what happens when they first show up? Not gonna lie, I don't remember the first episode very well.
Some guy like collapses, and they're like, "Whoa!"
Oh, right.
Whoa! And they take him to the medical bay because like his nerves go all black and stuff.
Yeah,
really weird.
Some weird disease or whatever. So
they take him to the med bay, and
they mentioned that like, oh, this is the second or third time this has happened, something like that. And they mentioned that the doctor, the basis doctor, Dr. Evans, has already come down with whatever this is.
Right, and they thought originally that the Dr. Ben and Polly and Jamie were the relief ship with the doctor that they're waiting for, but they eventually figure out it's not because the ship hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, well, we need a doctor, so, like, yeah. Go check him out. And the Gravitron's acting funky and is kind of doing some weird stuff, and they don't know why.
Right.
But, yeah.
Last time the technology was acting weird, the Cybermen showed up, so, I mean, who knows what's going to happen here.
So they go to the medical bay to check on Jamie, and the doctor sends Ben to, like, go and be helpful to the peeps running the base so that he can, like, overhear stuff and see what's up. And he goes, and he's told to go help this guy in the storeroom. So he does, and then while he's not looking, the guy in the storeroom gets knocked out, and there's this ominous Cyberman-shaped shadow on the wall. And then the storeroom guy disappears, and you're like, did he die? I don't know. And then Dr. Evans supposedly dies.
Right, the doctor and Polly confirm his death. And then Polly's like, Doctor, are you even a real doctor? And he's like, yeah, I got a medical degree in 1888.
Studied under Joseph Listner. Yeah, that guy.
She's like, are you sure your 1888 degree is gonna help out in 2070, doctor? And the doctor's just like, no, not really sure, but whatever.
Yeah, so the doctor goes off to go talk to whatever the head of the patient's name,
Hobson.
And Polly goes to get Jamie some water, and then Jamie sees the Cyberman, and he thinks it's the Phantom Piper, so he passes out.
Right, and is the Phantom Piper like a well-known myth or something? Because I'd never heard of it. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be like the Grim Reaper or something.
Maybe it's probably some Scottish thing.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't understand unless you were Scottish. Or, yeah.
I guess.
Well-versed in Scottish folklore.
But, yeah, that's where episode 1 ends.
And,
so,
yeah.
Okay, I was pretty disappointed that they brought the Cybermen back this quickly. Like, at the end of episode 1, I was just like, really? It's only been four serials.
I wasn't disappointed. Cybermen are pretty awesome.
They were pretty awesome, but I just don't want them to be so overused that they come back this often. And, I mean...
Well, they don't come back. They don't come back again till season 5, and then I think they don't even show up again till the third Doctor after that.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
And I think they're just trying to build another reoccurring villain that they can use other than the Daleks. Because I think they're trying to diversify it so they don't have to reuse the Daleks every time they want a scary villain.
I guess that's true, yeah. And I don't know much about, television show production or how it was back then or anything, but do you think they had produced these episodes before they realized the popularity of the Cybermen? Like before they got the ratings in from the first serial of season 4?
Probably not. I mean, I was reading that for at least Underwater Menace, they didn't have a script until like the week they were filming, so the episodes were filmed a week before they were released. So I don't know how far in advance they wrote this one, but I was thinking about this yesterday. Another reason they may have brought the Cybermen back so soon is that because of the way the 10th planet ended with wiping out all the Cybermen, if they hadn't brought them back so soon, they wouldn't have been able to retcon it as easily. Like, if they had waited a season before bringing them back, they were going to have to try retcon something from a season ago that no one would remember.
I guess. Then again, they didn't even really try to retcon it in this. They didn't ever explain how they were back.
They just glossed over it, because every time someone asked, they're like, no, don't ask. and the entire base is still in denial that the Cybermen are back until they see them, so...
Well, in their defense, I'd be pretty suspicious of the Doctor, Polly, and Ben and Jamie, but I don't know, they kind of go overboard.
Well, the Cybermen recognize the Doctor, just like the Daleks did, so that's also pretty suspicious.
No, yeah, so episode 2 starts with the Cyberman talking, and they have new voices, and I hate their new voices. I straight up hate their new voices.
Wow, I thought they made them more scary, and I thought they were a good addition to the character.
I couldn't understand what they were saying half the time. And
true! But it was still pretty cool.
I don't know, I think they just went for the more, generic, scary robot voice instead of the more unique voice that they gave them before. Captain Kirk voice.
these Cybermen are a century older than the other ones, because this serial takes place basically a century after Mondas blew up.
Right. Do we know how they're back? No, because they never tell us. They're probably not even going to revisit this in any way to explain how they're back.
It's okay. My fan theory is that some of them landed on the moon instead of Earth during the 10th planet, and they just stayed there and evolved.
Headcanon.
It works. A viable theory.
Okay. They also have redesigned suits. Not majorly redesigned or anything. I was questioning myself whether they were redesigned.
Yeah, they were, because they didn't have a huge lamp on their head anymore. It's more of a smaller light bulb type thing now. But the Cybermen are taking bodies from the infirmary. Why? You'll find out later. But nobody believes that Polly saw them take Dr. Evans' body until they all run in and see the Cybermen trying to take another body. But that doesn't happen until later, because Hobson, after Polly mentions that a Cyberman took the body, 1, he's suspicious that the Cybermen are back, and 2, he's suspicious of the fact that the Doctor, Ben, Polly, and Jamie showed up right as bodies started disappearing.
And right as the machinery started to malfunction.
And that part went missing, that they discover later.
So, they want to kick the Doctor and company off the base, but the Doctor's like, no, let us prove ourselves to you. We'll help discover what's going on here. So Hobson gives him 24 hours to do that.
1 day Earth cycle, because they create artificial day cycles on the Moonbase.
Right. So the Doctor gets to work examining stuff. And this is actually pretty funny. He goes around the base like with a magnifying glass and like a duster or whatever, and like little slides for a microscope, and he's like examining people's shoes and like their pants and stuff.
He takes off one of the guy's shoes while he's just standing there, and then Hobson's watch. He's like, "What are you doing?" The Doctor's like, "Oh, just collecting samples." Hobson's like, "Oh, yes, right." And the guy, I guess, just doesn't notice that he doesn't have a left shoe anymore, but okay.
Yeah, the Doctor's actually able to sneak around pretty unnoticed later on in this serial too, in another situation that I picked up on, which was even more extreme than this one. But yeah, the Doctor goes back into the lab, and he's examining everything, and nothing seems out of place. So he starts to... I think this is where he starts to sort of hypothesize that what they thought was a virus wasn't actually a virus, because nothing seems amiss about anything in the base.
Yeah, but Ben... 2 people go out to check the antenna and nothing interesting happens, except that they get hit by some Cybermen and knocked out and taken away. But nobody notices that for another episodes.
Come on, Moonbase, what are you doing?
They're dealing with an epidemic. So yeah, now is the big reveal scene, sort of, where they discover that it's in the sugar. Like, they make Polly go make some coffee, so she brings everyone some coffee. And the doctor is, like, pretended to figure out what it was, but he tells him over coffee that he doesn't actually know. And then a guy starts having a seizure and collapses, and his nerves go all black, and then the doctor's like, oh, it's in the sugar. After dramatically slapping the coffee out of Hobson's hand.
He's like, no, don't do that! It's in the sugar! Yeah, it's in the sugar.
And it turns out, it is a virus. Who would have known?
Yeah, it affects your nerves somehow, and then they go back into the lab, and the doctor starts questioning them. And I actually really liked this scene. I thought it was pretty creepy and got that sort of creepy vibe across pretty well, especially when that thing happens. But the doctor's like questioning whether they've checked the base thoroughly for infiltration, and Hobson's like, yes, there's no Cybermen here. That's impossible. And the doctor's like, did you check this room? And Hobson's just like, and this creepy music is playing, and you see a Cyberman
dramatically flip off the blanket.
Yep.
He was hiding as one of the patients. And then he stands up. And then they're like, well, shoot.
And that's where episode 2 ends.
Yeah, the Cybermen don't have their big gun light ray things now.
Oh, yeah.
They've just got those hand pistols that they never used.
Well, they tried to use... Well, that's another story. But yeah. I remember you saying earlier that you noticed music in this serial, and I didn't for the most part, but I did at the end of episode 2 in that scene. Oh.
Yeah, well, I'll mention it when the scene comes up, but there's another scene later that has it pretty predominantly.
Uh-huh. So, episode 3 starts, and this is now back to animation. So...
What happens in episode 3?
The Cyberman reveals that everyone they thought was dead isn't actually dead, and they...
Well, except that guy they killed earlier.
Oh, right. They kill a guy... Right as the Cyberman appears, a guy's like, oh god, and he tries to, like, rush the Cyberman or something, and he dies.
Yeah, Anders.
They use that... Apparently they have, like, light thing or something.
They can shoot lightning out of their hands now, which is awesome!
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought the visual effect for that was pretty good for, like...
There were a lot of good visual effects for this, like the lightning, and then when the spaceship landed later in the telescope.
And the giant gun they use later on.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So, yeah, Anders is dead. But no one else is.
Yeah, no one else has died. Not even Dr. Evans, who the doctor and Polly proclaimed to be dead earlier. They're not dead.
Yeah. So, the Cyberman requests to be taken to the main control bay or whatever. And... they're like, wait, weren't you all killed when Mondas blew up? And he just kind of brushes it off, like we were saying earlier. And then a few other Cybermen show up, and they give their reason for wanting to destroy the Earth. And it's just revenge, I guess.
Well, it's not like they'd have any other reason.
They said...
Their whole home planet was destroyed.
Yeah. Which I thought it was kind of weird, since they have no emotions or feelings. I guess it's understandable. But,
maybe it's just a holdover from, let's destroy Earth so Mondas can survive. But none of them realized Mondas got blown up. Because maybe they weren't on Mondas when Mondas blew up.
Right.
I mean, they've got spaceships, so...
Maybe according to you, they were on the moon.
Well, they've got spaceships, so it's possible they weren't even on Mondas when Mondas blew up.
I guess maybe they were just those guys who were living under a rock for 100 years and still think
on the other hand, all the Cybermen on Earth collapsed and died when Mondas blew up because they didn't receive any energy. So you know what? I don't even know. Forget it. I don't know.
Maybe these are just humans pretending to be Cybermen. Their costumes are different.
Hey, it's okay. In the reboot, the Cybermen convert humans into Cybermen, so... Could be.
They were planning on doing that in 10th Planet.
Yeah.
But other than straight up revenge, they kind of say they kind of give another reason, and I forget exactly what it was, but they say they need to destroy all potential threats, and that like the entire surface of the Earth poses a potential threat, so they got to destroy it or something like that. I don't really remember.
Yeah, so we should mention Jamie, Polly, and Ben were locked in the sick bay.
Right. And then that magnificent plan they devised. Anyway,
we'll get to that in a second.
The Doctor starts doing something here, but what was it?
Oh, the Cybermen have these like control mechanism things on the heads of everyone who has that virus on, and the Doctor figures out that the Cybermen are controlling them with this weird device thing. So he keeps like sneaking up and turning the knob and stuff, seeing what it does.
And again, no one notices. The Doctor's just like crouched down a foot, and he's sneaking around, and nobody notices him at all. Second Doctor, so sneaky.
They send.
Wait, is this the part with the Doctor's inner monologue thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, I think this is the first instance where we get to hear a character's thoughts on this show.
Probably. Even weirder, the Doctor replies to his own thoughts. But he replies to his thoughts out loud. Yeah. So we like hear his thoughts as a whisper, and then he replies out loud to them, and it's like, how does nobody hear this? But they send some of the controlled people into the room that controls the gravitron's angle, which apparently you need to wear these helmets in because of like sonic things.
Science. You need to wear a helmet so you don't die.
But the Cybermen control people don't, because the Cybermen are like, doesn't matter, we're gonna kill you all in the end anyway.
Yeah, the Cybermen are like, yeah, they can be exposed to 12 hours of radiation, it's fine. But then that's when the Doctor realizes that the Cybermen don't want to go in the room for some reason, and at first he thinks it's radiation, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. They can't stand radiation. But then he like devises that it's gravity or something, and then it just cuts to.
But that subplot isn't followed up on anyway, so
I guess.
And then it cuts back to the medical bay.
With
Jeez.
Yeah. Ben, Jamie, and Polly are like, well, what can we do? And then Ben remembers that, they're trying to think of ways to get rid of the Cybermen. And they're trying to find weaknesses in their protective armor or their suits or whatever. So they realize that the suits are made out of metal, but their little chest plate things are made out of plastic. So Polly's like, wait, nail polish is actually a plastic, so if we can just spray nail polish remover at them, then they'll probably die. So apparently they have some acetone. So they mix all the chemicals in the room.
That would probably kill them, to be honest. Like, honestly, mixing all these solvents together, genius. Just genius. How does it not dissolve through the glass beaker they're using? And then they put it in a plastic thing to spray the Cybermen with, and it doesn't dissolve its way through that. Oh my goodness.
This show is hard sci-fi, everyone.
If anything, this is bordering on fantasy. Oh, jeez. No, did they even have a science consultant on this show?
Probably not. I mean, I don't think the plot would have gone anywhere if they didn't do this, which is kind of sad. But there's one thing I wanted to mention here. They were spray bottles like, and I'm probably gonna sound really stupid for saying this, but were spray bottles like new in the '60s? Because didn't Ben have that like 3-second explanation of how spray bottles work?
I don't know.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't know, but they were the fire extinguishers for the Moonbase, so like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that.
They empty out the fire extinguishers and fill them with their solvent anti-Cybermen spray.
and then they escape somehow.
Yeah, they just bust down the door and Ben's like, Polly, stay back, this is a man's job. And Polly's like, excuse me?
He just snapped his fingers in a Z formation.
Anyway, they all take spray bottles and they just kill the 2 Cybermen in the control room, which puts Ben at the top of the kill count, and he's not done yet.
Nope. He's not even close to... Well, he actually is pretty close to being done, considering he's already killed 2 people. But yeah, it works. I was like... While I was watching them mix it and stuff, I was like, there's no way this is going to work. They're going to spray this, and the Cybermen are just going to be like, what? What are you guys doing? But nope, it works. 2 Cybermen die.
Can you imagine if it hadn't worked and the dog just be like, Ben, Polly, what were you thinking?
They're standing there with the spray bottles in hand like, well then.
Imagine the scene going, like, they come out and there's this action music playing, like, dun 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 dun, and they're spraying, and then it just stops and, like, nothing's happening. You just see them standing there spraying the Cybermen. But anyway, So they kill 2 men, and then Benoit, who's actually been pretty much a main character, but we haven't mentioned him since.
Right, yeah. He's not done much physically, I guess. He's more contributed to like the dialogue and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagined he was kind of like the second in command, just on based on how much he talked compared to everyone else. But yeah.
So he realizes that the 2 men who they sent out haven't come back yet, so he's gonna go out there himself.
3 hours later. Good job, guys.
So he goes out himself, and people inside are watching like, well, Benoit, there's a Cyberman. And then this humorous scene, he's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing out here. And he like looks to the left, and there's nothing there. And then as he looks to his right, the camera pans back, and he just looks at a Cyberman gun. He's like, oh. But then the Cybermen guns don't work in a vacuum.
Luckily.
You'd think they would have thought that through better.
You'd think they would have at least tested them before this, but no.
So Benoit makes a break for it. And Ben is like, well, we've got this anti-Cybermen stuff, let's use it. And he fills up and makes like a grenade of sorts.
Yeah, I guess he fills the solution into a glass bottle or something.
And then this is the scene with the music, but there's like this chase music playing while Benoit is running away from the Cybermen. And, but it's like interspersed with cuts to Ben and Polly trying to get out. And every time it cuts to Ben and Polly, there's just no music. It's just dead silent. That was really weird. But I definitely noticed it because that's so jarring.
You know, as noticeable as I think that would be, I didn't notice it at all. Somehow.
Wow. Wow, because it was like techno chase music. But anyway, so Ben gets out and kills the Cybermen. He's like at 7 on the death count now.
Damn, Barbara's been dethroned.
You've been dethroned, Barbara.
So yeah, they go back into the base, and then the Cybermen army thing starts to march on their base.
Did you notice they reused a scene? Because I noticed this. There was the scene at the end of episode 3 where the Cybermen all march and like spread out and stand on the rim of the crater.
Yeah.
They reused that scene again in episode 4.
Well, they start episode 4 with the same scene that.
No, but they reused it again later in the episode.
I
noticed it because I had been counting the Cybermen in case they all died, and I needed to keep an accurate count on the death count. And I noticed it was the same scene both times.
Well, obviously the episode 3 one was animated, and
right,
yeah,
but
I didn't notice that. But yeah, episode 4 starts with the Cybermen somehow hacking into their radio frequency, and they're like, "You're surrounded. Don't even try."
They've got a spaceship that they've realized is there because they look through a telescope.
Right.
A telescope.
And the Cybermen tell them to just give up because there's no hope. And then Hobson, completely bluffing, is like, well, we've discovered your secret entryway into our base and we blocked it, so there's no way you guys are getting in. And then as soon as they turn the radio off, he's like, man, I really hope we can find their secret passageway into our base.
Wait, I thought they did, because I thought the Cybermen mentioned they came into the storeroom, and then Hobson was like, oh, that's why we've been having pressure drops so much.
But they didn't act on it at all.
Oh, well, yeah, they didn't block it up, but they didn't know where it was. So. But then, I guess nobody had been paying attention to the sick bay because Dr. Evans gets up.
Yeah, this is just...
and knocks out Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap. No, but I read his name badge was like Beckett S, and I was like, hey, Sam Beckett. Quantum Leap was a good show from the 80s.
Yeah, no, this whole scenario with Dr. Evans sneaking into the gravitron control room really pushed my my suspension of disbelief to the extreme.
And mixing the solvents didn't. And the fact that the Cybermen survived the destruction of their home planet didn't.
Well, this all did, but I mean, come on, this scene. So Dr. Evans just sneaks into the control room, going through pretty much every room in the base, unnoticed, knocks out the guy in the control room, and
puts the helmet on backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a production error, but I think it can be explained in another headcanon-y fashion. No, the Cybermen wouldn't have known how to control him.
But it was on the right way in the next scene.
Oh, yeah. Maybe they were like, hey, this is probably on the wrong way. So yeah, he starts controlling the gravitron, and then they see the rest of the people see that what was it, the assistance ship or whatever is finally on its way, and then they see that it gets diverted off course and starts flying into the sun
at massive speeds. And Benoit is just like, well, there's nothing we can do now.
So they all die. You don't know.
But they will 3 weeks from now when they hit the sun.
That would actually suck. Imagine being on a ship headed toward the sun and just knowing you're gonna die. I'd just be like, wow. Anyway, the doctor's like, hey, how could they be diverted into the sun unless the gravitron was somehow controlling them? Wait a minute. Then they all look into the gravitron control room, and then Dr. Evans just looks back. And he's like, yep, it was me all along. No, he doesn't say that, but I just imagine him giving this evil smile and just nodding and being like, yep, it was me, guys. But no, he just looks back.
And so they're like, well, shoot. And then the Cybermen make another threat, and they're like, hey, man, we're gonna blast you to smithereens with this giant gun they've taken out. And everybody gets down, and the doctor's like, nope, I'll stand up, thanks. Because Hobson's like, quick, everyone get down. The doctor doesn't want to. And then they shoot the dome, and it deflects. The bullet deflects. And then they shoot again, and it deflects. And then it shoots again, and it deflects. And then they give up.
Thanks to I guess the deflection was thanks to the gravitron or something.
Yeah, I guess.
I imagine. So then they obviously need to get the gravitron working again so that Earth doesn't fall to pieces.
Although that begs the question, how was the weather so bad for the previous century that they had to start controlling it from the moon?
Maybe they just thought it would be a cool idea. They were like, hey, let's control the weather. Let's spend millions of dollars.
Because there was that one scene where the guy on Earth was like, we spent years writing up the agreements between us and the farmers. You can't mess this up now. We'll be in like hot water for 10 years.
I guess. But, I mean, does anything in this serial really have a good explanation? No.
Yes. Benoit's French.
Right, that makes everything else in this serial okay. Benoit's French.
He could have been Nigerian. I was thinking about this. It's in black and white, so that flag on his chest might not have been the French flag.
He was basically a stereotypical French guy.
True.
But yeah.
So the Cybermen blow a hole in the dome, and then there's this humorous scene where everybody's like, can't breathe, except Benoit and Hobson can.
And they're standing right next to the vacuum hole thing. And they decide to plug it up with a coffee tray.
Well, first they plug it with Hobson's coat, and they're like, phew! But then the coat gets sucked out too. So they plug it with a coffee tray.
Yep. And they try and get the gravitron back working. And they can't, because its angle is misaligned or something.
Well, they're trying to angle it down because the Doctor, I guess, figures out we can just use the gravitron on the Cybermen. Just use this weapon of peace as a weapon of mass destruction. Yeah, how would you choose the people to man the gravitron? You'd have to choose people who don't have a vendetta against anyone on Earth, because otherwise all of Earth is gonna suffer. You've literally put power into these, 7 dudes' hands.
This wasn't very well thought out. Plus, weren't 4 of them from England?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There's 4 from England, 1 from France, and 1 from generic Scandinavian country that you couldn't tell which one, because all their flags looked the same and it was in black and white, so you couldn't tell the colors.
There was one German guy.
And the German guy.
Yeah.
All of them from Europe.
Great Britain, OP. Conspiracy?
Anyway, they break into the control room and take Dr. Evans away. And then Benoit takes over. And the gravitron won't lower anymore, so the Doctor and Hobson try to lower it by hand, but Hobson figures out there's an angle block mechanism thing, and he just fiddles some switches and then it's off, and then Benoit lowers it and it launches all the Cybermen into space.
The end.
Basically, because then Ben, Polly, Jamie, and the Doctor just leave. They sneak out. And then that begs the question, because Hobson makes them all just immediately get back to work, which left me with a couple of questions. 1, are they ever going to fix that hole in the dome that's currently being held by a coffee plate? 2, what about that virus that nobody actually cured? 3, guess this means the Cybermen can come back now since none of them really died.
Yeah. So the second Doctor's endings to his serials have all been pretty abrupt so far, I'd say. But this one just took the cake. I mean, this was just complete unresolvedness, and then 5 minutes later, everything's okay, and they just leave. But yeah.
So they get in the TARDIS, and the Doc's like, where should we go? Let's look at the time scanner.
Yeah, they used that thing again, which I thought they were never going to use again.
Oh, yeah, that they had way back with Ian and Barbara.
Yeah, it was the
time scanner, time visualizer, space-time visualizer.
Was it
something like that?
Yeah, whatever. They used that, and then Jamie's like, black magic, eh? That can't be a good sign. Even though he's somehow okay with all these computers and other stuff. But anyway, they look on the screen, and Polly freaks out because of a crab claw. Yes, that's right. Next week, the Doctor will be facing his greatest enemy, a crab.
He'll be going to a seafood restaurant. He'll want to eat a crab. He'll have trouble getting it out, and then he'll devise this elaborate 4-episode plot to get it out safe. And
I'd watch it.
And then it'll end with him eating the crab, and Jamie, Ben, and Polly being like, "Hey, we wanted crab too." And then it'll just end.
I'd watch it. It'd probably be better than this.
Really?
No. No. I mean, as weird as this serial was, I guess we're transitioning into this now. I kind of like this serial. Wasn't as good as the Cybermen's first appearance for reasons we mentioned before, but
it's kind of silly. Which was pretty cool.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like how this show can the overarching story can be serious like it was in this serial, but they can just have a bunch of ridiculous things that happen, whether they mean for them to be ridiculous or not. I mean, yeah, I like how they do that sometimes. And
yeah.
And sometimes the more serious and down to earth serials aren't as good, so yeah. Pretty disappointed with what they did at the Cybermen though. I don't know. I liked their original design. I liked their original weapon, and I liked their original voices a lot better than what they're doing now. So I kind of hope they go back to that, but I
don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
They're just going to evolve more until they become those ones in the reboot that are literally just completely silver.
I imagine them being completely silver in this, actually.
Well, they had a plastic middle section.
But I imagined it being silver.
True.
But yeah. Oh, Another piece of music I wanted to mention in this serial. The only other one that I noticed was it was the end of episode 3 / beginning of episode 4, and it was play the theme that was playing while the Cybermen were marching on the base, and I noticed this because episode 3 ends with this music sort of just abruptly fading out. It fades out, but it does so quickly, and then it just transitions into the ending credits. And I was like, was this scene originally planned to be longer? Because why wouldn't they end the song right there? And then when I saw that episode 4 started with the same scene, I was like, okay, maybe they filmed this all in one go and planned for...
Yeah,
and
maybe.
just split it up right there. I mean, that was just my little explanation for it. But I found it kind of jarring and weird that they ended it like that with the music
it's
like mid.
Possible they were missing the end of that scene for episode 3 because I mean I was reading yesterday because I was reading up on who animated this one to see if it was the same people, which it was, which I'll get to in a second. But even the recovered serials apparently, because some of them are recovered from places like Australia or New Zealand where they'd censored part of it, there are like a couple seconds of footage missing even from recovered episodes. Like certain serials have had the censored clips recovered as well and reintegrated back into the footage, but like either film damage or censoring has made part of the film unusable, so maybe they were just missing the end, and the film was damaged possibly.
But what would they need to censor? I mean, there's not really anything bad in this show at all.
Dude, it's Australia.
All right, fine.
Yeah, I don't actually know. But they did.
Wasn't there one Australian guy on the Moonbase too?
I don't know.
I think there was. Anyway.
There might have been.
But yeah, I was surprised to hear from you a couple of days ago that all the animations we've watched so far have been animated by the same people.
Yep.
And well, I mean, that wasn't so much surprising between this serial and 10th Planet, but I was surprised to hear Reign of Terror was from the same company, because that one looked completely different. 2, the animation was way worse. 3, the fact that they were all animated by the same company kind of makes me think that all those angle changes were present in the original Reign of Terror, because they didn't go with that route in the other 2 serials that they animated.
They might have been. I mean, we'll never know unless someone finds the Reign of Terror sitting in the basement for whatever reason. I also discovered that I didn't mention Mission to the Unknown was actually animated and never released to the public.
Why?
Because there was a company that was like, hey, we can animate for cheaps. So they made like a test roll of footage of animated scenes. And the BBC didn't want to spend more money on animation, so they didn't hire the company. But Ian Levine, who's like a guy who works with the BBC, who's been working on the recovery of Classic Who episodes, commissioned them to do like a test animation episode, and they chose Mission to the Unknown since it was a self-contained episode. But it was never released to the public. But it was animated.
That's interesting.
So yeah. I think there is another serial later that was animated by different people, so I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah, I was going to say I could have sworn there was at least 2 animation companies.
Yeah, there is. The next one I'm pretty sure is the one that's animated by a different company, but I don't think the next one happens till near the end of season 5. So that's like 7 weeks from now at least.
Reconstructions, joy.
But yeah.
And there was something I wanted to ask you. And it seems I always forget these things.
Nice.
Minutes after I think of them, but I don't know. It pertained to the animation.
Oh well.
Maybe I'll think of it later. Who knows? But
so yeah, pretty good too. Silly, but still good.
Interesting. Yeah.
Check us out on iTunes. Rate us on iTunes. Check out the website. Check out the Facebook page. Trust your doctor. Email us, thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, screenplays.
Screenplays?
I don't know.
Sure.
Just trying to change it up, man. And next week?
Next week, the Doctor faces his greatest enemy, a crab, in the Macro Terror. But until then, the end.